everybody, and welcome back to our Trumpeter 1/200 scale HMS Hood build. We're closing in on the end of this build now. There's not too much to do, and I'm aiming to hopefully finish in a nice neat 50 episodes. Just another couple to do after this one. For this week I want to get the bridge fully completed, and that means fitting some bits of bridge equipment that I didn't do when I built the main bridge structure earlier on in the build, quite a few weeks ago now. So a lot of this work will be at the bench, and then we'll just come together at the end just to fit the parts. There's not that many to do, but it's quite fiddly work. The equipment that I'm going to be fitting and building includes the air lookout binoculars and stuff like that from the Pontos set. So it's a lot of brass work again before we actually fit them into place, and I've got some railings to do to finish off the bridge railings as well. So I'll get over to the bench. Hopefully it'll be a fairly short episode this week, and we'll get those parts made up before we get them fitted to the model. Okay, so this is the sheet on page 13 that has the instructions on it for these various pieces of bridge equipment. We've got some air lookout binoculars here. The binoculars belonging to the air defence officer, we've got a couple of those to make up, 4 searchlight sights to make, and a couple of Polaris sights as well, which are these up here. They're all a type of binocular arrangement just for lookout purposes, but they are slightly different. So I think I'll start with the 4 searchlight sights. Let's get those done first. So the first thing that we want are the main pedestals, if you like, for the searchlight sights. These are quite intricate turned brass pieces, but there's quite a bit of etched brass to go with it as well, and this is all on fret 1. So I'll get all those parts cut out. Okay, so these are all the parts for the searchlight sights. Some pretty small stuff here. I'm going to need this wax pencil to fit a lot of them. So just trying to work out where to start with these. And the first thing is to get these rings fitted. As with a lot of these Pontos parts, the tolerances are very small. I need to hold that in some locking tweezers. I'm going to make these in mass production style, so do the same assembly on each one in turn. When you're doing parts like this where you've got multiples, I often do them like this. It just gets you into a bit of a swing with them. And as a result, they often go together a lot more quickly than doing them one by one. This extra thin super glue that I'm using for these parts is really useful because it tends not to flood. It's so thin that it doesn't flood the part. Next we have these parts here which form a box which goes around the bottom. So I'm going to have to form those as we go around. So these boxes I just fold up roughly just to start to get it into the correct shape, but obviously leave an opening for them. And then drop them on and close the box around the pedestal. So the last but one part is this, which has quite a few folds on it really. And these are pretty fragile, so I'll have to be careful with them. Now these appear to fit on the flats at the top. That is the head of the sight, and we need to get that onto the flat created at the top. It's quite awkward to get these top pieces straight and level. I'm just going to leave that to set. The actual sight needs to be bent upwards, but I'm just going to wait until that's completely set. While I've got this in the tweezers, I'll just fit this last part, which appears to be some sort of control wheel. So let's see if we can drop that on. So that's a completed Searchlight sight. Obviously there's the other three to do. I'll just finish those off now. Right, so that's the first job out of the way, 4 Searchlight sights. So next I'll do these two. This is a Polaru sight and a Polaru 2. So we'll do these Polaru sights now. 2 of them have binoculars on top, and the third one, I think it was some form of compass. It was some sort of direction equipment. And again, these go up on the defence platform. So we'll do these 2 first with the binoculars on top. And the first thing I want to do is just fit the cap onto those. Next we have these rings, and this stem at the side will fold up to give us the bracket for the actual binocular. These are just ridiculously small really. So we'll get those rings in place before we do the bending, just allow them to set, and then I'll bend them up. Bend those parts up now. I think I've actually got those on upside down, but they're so small that I doubt that anybody's going to notice. I'll take the binoculars off next. That's these parts. They fold in half, so they end up double thickness. I won't glue these just yet. I remember when I did the ALO sights a while ago that they were difficult to mount onto the little brackets, and when you see what I mean, these tiny brackets are what fits underneath these binoculars. This will be quite a test, I think, to get these to fit, but we'll give it a go. I think the best thing might be to glue the bracket together first of all, and then balance the binocular on top. That's the little arm in position. I'll just leave them to set up a little while I put the bases on them. So again, tiny little bases for the bottom. These are barely worth fitting really, they're so small. Right, the trick now is to get the actual binocular to sit on top of the bracket. Which is obviously going to be easier said than done. The trick now is to get these binoculars to sit on top of that bracket that we've just fitted. It might just be possible there to see the binoculars on top of that stand. So they've come out pretty well. I'll just put those to one side and we'll do this part next, which is described as a Pelorus 2 in the Pontos instructions, and that just has a set of seats around it. So this is what I believe was a kind of compass arrangement, or a direction finding arrangement, not absolutely certain. Images of Hood's air defence platform at this time in her career are fairly sketchy. I do have some that were sent to me a while ago, but they're far from clear. So these little pieces fold up at the side. And break off because they're so ridiculously fragile. So I've already broken one of these parts off. I'm going to have to try and get it back on somehow, but it's such a small contact that I might not be able to. Okay, I think that's close enough. So that's what's described as a Pelorus 2 in the Pontos instructions. The next thing to do is the air lookout binoculars, and I've got another 8 of these to make, which isn't a pleasant prospect really because they're very fiddly. But we have to do them, so we just need to get our head down and get them sorted out. So these are the main parts for them. These are brass parts 28 in the Pontos set, turn brass, and of course they're all individual pedestals. We do have a spare. Let's hope we don't need it. The first thing I'll do is put the pedestal bases on, and for some reason Pontos want to put 2 of these on, but I just don't think it makes any difference. I'll just fit the one. So we'll get those done first. The next thing I'm going to do is fit the seats to these. There was a seat at the back of each pedestal, and with these I just want to glue the bracket first. I'll sort the bend of the seats out later once the bracket's fixed. So these have got a little fork on them, you might just be able to see there. Tiny little fork which hooks around the stem. And again, once I've got that in position, I'll just secure it. So just do all these one at a time. By the time we've got round to all 8, the first ones that I did will hopefully have dried and be ready for the next stage. That's the theory anyway. So each of these seats has the bracket which needs to be bent upwards through 90 degrees, like that. And then the seat itself twists around and down onto the bracket. So ends up looking like that. The next thing with these sights is to fit these brackets. So I'm going to glue these onto the pedestal first before I fold them up again, and that's just so we get a nice firm fixing with them. Sorry about the sunlight, it's very bright today. And we want to get these in the correct position relative to the seat, so it goes directly above the seat. What we have to do with these now is fit the binoculars, so they just fold through 180 degrees to double the thickness. But we have to bend the brackets that we've just fitted, and they go up through 90 degrees to form, well, it's a kind of cradle really. Try and get them as parallel as possible. And then Pontos want us to actually fit the tops of these arms into the binoculars, but I've never got that to work. I've built these before and the tabs are just far too small. I can't even see them, let alone get them fitted. So what I do is just put the binoculars in between the bracket like that, and then just adjust the position slightly as you want them. The trick with them is to get them as straight as possible. Okay, one more to do. Okay, so those are all the bridge equipment primed and ready for a top coat. And then we can go over and get them on the ship. I'll add quite a bit of detail, I think, to the bridge structure. This is etching primer, so I want to leave it overnight to fully harden before I put the top coat on. That's an awful lot of work for this episode. Doesn't look like much when it's on the ship, but there's quite a few hours of building work there with all this etched brass and turned brass from the Pontos set. So here are all our bridge parts painted up in the grey. I'm just going to do a tiny little bit of detail painting, not too much. I remember when I did the first 6 air lookout binoculars for the bridge, further down the bridge, I just added a little bit of colour to the seats. I painted the seats in a red leather colour, and as I said at the time, I don't know whether that's accurate, but it just adds a tiny little bit of detail and a bit of interest. I doubt that there would be grey unless there were just a steel pan, but I don't know for sure. So this is called artistic license. That'll do, just a little splash of colour, and I want to paint the binoculars in black. So I'll use some NATO black or rubber black, I think. I like painting with this Tamiya lacquer paint. It gives a nice smooth finish on the brush, whereas I always have difficulty painting acrylics unless they're really thinned down an awful lot. Painting them with a brush as well, I put this paint on fairly thick, and what that does is it just gives a bit more 3D relief to the binoculars. Otherwise they look a bit flat just straight from the etched. There we are. So that's all I'm going to do with those. So we can get over and get those fitted to the bridge. Okay, so we'll attempt to fit these bridge parts now. I've got a bit of a difficulty because I've fitted some of the lookout binoculars on the starboard side, and one of them has flown out of the tweezers and has gone over the floor of the shed somewhere. And I've just had a quick look for it and can't see it. So that's going to stop me finishing this today, which is a bit of a shame. I'm not sure what I'll do if I can't find it, because the trumpeter parts look nothing like the Pontos parts. Anyway, we'll cross that bridge later on. Let's get the ones that we've got fitted. So I've got the lookouts on first. There's 2 on the bridge extension at the back and 2 on the air defence platform. So I'm just putting these on with some thick super glue. And actually I've just discovered the ALO that I thought I'd lost. It was stuck to my hand. I don't know how it had got there. I've lost the binocular off it, but I'll be able to, I think I've got some spares which I can use. So that's a half lucky experience. Put the Searchlight directors on now. They go on this wing here. I'll obviously get some close-up photographs of these when everything's in position. Next up, we've got the ADOs to fit, and I'm just going to take off a little bit of the pin on the underside of those. They look a bit too long for the platform. Last up for the air defence platform is the piloru, which goes in the centre of the platform at the front. And Pontos would have us fit this onto a raised platform, but my photographs of this area show that that platform didn't exist. So I'm just going to sit that on the front of the air defence platform like so. These next sights go one step further down. The pom-pom directors go on the bridge wings here, and so we're having to reach in to position these, which is a bit scary. So I just need to recover some binoculars for that missing air lookout, but apart from that, I'm happy with that. The bridge is looking nice and busy now. Okay, so that's all the bridge equipment fitted. I'll find the replacement binoculars for that air lookout. I know that I've got one somewhere, so that won't be a problem. We'll be able to sort that out. So next time I'll be getting on with finishing the forecastle. So getting the anchor chains fitted, all the railings done, and then that should be it for the forecastle deck. Then in the last but one part, I'll be doing the quarterdeck again with the railings and just doing some touch-ups around the rear screens. Both parts I'll be fitting the ensign staffs at the fore and after the ship. And then in the last part, I'll just be doing some final tidying up, some touch-ups here and there, and we'll be able to take a look, hopefully, at the completed model. And I think that'll be probably in part 50. So a nice, neat 50 episodes to build this model. So that's it for this one. I'm sorry it's been a short one, and it's been a difficult episode to film, really, because of the parts being so tiny. It's very difficult to get a good image of the parts going in. So that's it for now, everybody. I'll see you in another 7 days for the next part of the hood build. I've got the Vulcan coming on as well, and there'll be another couple of videos before next week on the Vulcan build. But if you're following the hood, I'll see you next Friday as usual at 8 o'clock. In the meantime, have a great week, everybody. Stay safe. So bye for now.